You sign up for a dating app on a slow Tuesday night, mostly out of boredom. 3 days later, you have a match that actually feels right. A real conversation, a real date. And by the following week, you delete your profile without a second thought. That is the outcome every dating app claims to want. It is also the outcome that costs it money. The subscription you never renewed, the boosts you never bought, the months of engagement you skipped past, all of it disappears the moment you stop needing the product. A dating app may be one of the only businesses on earth where total customer success looks, on a retention dashboard, almost exactly like customer loss. Most subscription businesses do not work this way. A streaming service wants you watching forever. A gym wants you renewing even if you show up twice a year. A dating app is one of the rare products explicitly built to solve itself out of a job, one user at a time, and that is exactly what makes its economics worth taking apart. Now switch sides. Say you are the one building the app, not using it. Your product has one job: connect single people with other single people who might be a match. To do that job well, you need scale. A large, active pool in every city, every age range, every set of preferences, refreshed constantly so the app has something new to offer each time someone opens it. A dating app with a handful of users is not a product, it is an awkward group chat. A dating app with millions of active profiles is a marketplace, and marketplaces get more useful as they get bigger, because a bigger pool means better odds of a match, and better odds mean a better reputation. So the entire business, from day one, is built around gathering a very large group of single people and keeping that group large enough to stay useful. Most of those people will never pay a cent, and that is by design. Free to download, free to build a profile, free to match. A small number of paying users can only exist on top of a much larger number of free ones because paying customers need something to browse. Running that marketplace is not free for the company, though. Someone has to pay for the engineers behind the recommendation system, the servers holding millions of profiles and photos, the trust and safety teams reviewing reports and removing fake accounts, ordinary customer support, marketing to bring new users in the door, and the cut that Apple and Google take on every purchase processed through their app stores. None of those costs disappear just because most users never pay a subscription fee. They have to be covered by whichever slice of the population does pay, which is exactly why the business must convert at least a slice of that free population into paying users. The free users create the product's value. The paying users keep the lights on. So how does a company make money from a product that most people use for free and eventually want to stop using altogether? It sells the conditions of the search rather than the result. On Hinge, a free account gets a capped number of likes per day and waits for the ordinary pace of the algorithm to surface potential matches. A paying account gets to skip past parts of that wait. More likes, better placement in front of other profiles, and visibility into interest that would otherwise stay hidden until a match happens naturally. Hinge, the app whose entire slogan is a promise to make itself unnecessary, runs on exactly this structure. Send a rose to make one profile stand out from the pile, buy a boost to push a profile higher for a limited period, or step up to its higher subscription tier to unlock unlimited likes and see who has already said yes. None of these upgrades change who exists on the platform. They only change how quickly and how visibly a paying user can move through the same pool everyone else is swimming in. Selling a relationship was never really the offer. Selling speed, visibility, and information during a search that has not ended yet. That is the actual offer, and a meaningful share of users never pay for any of it at all. It follows the logic of a networked matching marketplace. Free participants create the pool, while a smaller paying group purchases advantages inside it. The unusual part is that some participants hope to leave together. Look at what a dating company actually tracks and reports to its own investors, and a pattern shows up fast. Match Group, which owns Tinder, Hinge, and several smaller apps, reports figures like monthly active users, a count of paying users it calls payers, and a metric it calls revenue per payer, or RPP. Bumble reports something similar called ARPPU, average revenue per paying user. Neither company reports a quarterly metric showing how many lasting relationships or marriages its products created. Match Group does track something called Sparks, A conversation metric it describes as a proxy for real connection, and says it uses that signal to improve user outcomes, retention, and revenue. But Spark still measures an interaction inside the app, not what happens after two users leave it. It helps to be precise about what these terms actually measure, since it is easy to blur them together. A payer is a user with an active paid subscription or a recent in-app purchase, not everyone who has ever opened the app. Revenue per payer and ARPPU measure how much each already paying customer is spending, not how many people overall are on the platform. A company can grow its total user base while its payer count falls, or raise revenue per payer while losing payers outright, and each of those movements tells a different story about the business. None of them, on their own, measure whether the app is succeeding at its stated job of helping someone meet someone. A rising Sparks count may indicate more meaningful conversations, but it cannot establish how many became real dates or lasting relationships. Public reporting stays centered on active users, retention, payers, and revenue per payer. User outcomes matter to the business, but financially, they matter largely through the way they move those numbers. This is where the business model runs into its own logic. Match Group states plainly in the risk factors section of its annual filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission that its user base can shrink specifically because users find meaningful relationships and no longer need its products. That sentence is not a rumor about the industry or a theory from the outside. It is the company's own acknowledged risk, written for regulators and investors, sitting next to warnings about competition and data security. Risk factor disclosures like this one are not confessions or predictions. Public companies are required to disclose material risks, however uncomfortable, so investors are not caught off guard. What matters is that Match Group identified this specific mechanism: users finding meaningful relationships and no longer needing its products. Read next to the same filing's emphasis on retention, active user growth, and converting free users into payers. The picture is hard to unsee. A company whose stated success metrics are undercut by its own stated purpose. It does not need to want any individual user to fail. It only needs enough of its users in aggregate to keep searching for revenue to keep flowing. Because for users seeking a lasting relationship, the moment of success and the moment of departure can be the exact same moment. It would be easy to stop the story here and conclude that the smartest move for a dating app is to make matching as difficult as possible, stretching every search out for as long as it can be stretched. That conclusion does not survive contact with how these businesses actually behave or with how users behave in response. An app that reliably fails to produce real dates loses the one asset that made it valuable in the first place: trust. People rarely join a dating app because it exists. They join because someone they know had a good experience on it, or because reviews and word of mouth say it works. If the search there feels permanently rigged or pointless, users leave. But they leave frustrated rather than satisfied, and frustrated leavers do not send new users in behind them. Match Group itself says user success builds trust and can bring new users through positive word of mouth. That makes a happy departure economically useful in a second way. It shrinks today's user pool, but can help replenish tomorrow's. Reputation does not eliminate the need for paid marketing, but it can reduce how much of the next wave must be bought. Not every departure is permanent either. Match Group explicitly discusses marketing to both new and repeat users, which means returning daters are part of the acquisition equation too. But public filings do not reveal how large that group is, how long users stay away, or whether they came back after a relationship, a frustration, or simple inactivity. The numbers from a single recent quarter show both sides of this tension operating at once. In the quarter ending in June of 2026, Match Group reported a payer base of 13.25 million, down 6% from a year earlier, even as revenue per payer climbed 6% to $21.13. Fewer people paying, each of them paying a little more. A company partially offsetting a shrinking base of payers with higher revenue from the ones who remain. Bumble's numbers from the same quarter tell a harsher version of the same story. Payers down 16.4% year over year. Total revenue down 15.2%, even as average revenue per paying user inched up 1.2%. Match Group, Bumble, and Hinge do not all define payer identically, so none of these figures should be read as directly interchangeable between companies. But within each company's own reporting, the direction is unmistakable. Neither company's public filings say how many of those departing payers left because they found a relationship, because they got frustrated, or because they switched to a competitor. That distinction matters, and it stays genuinely unresolved in the public record. What the filings do establish cleanly is that losing paying users is not a hypothetical risk sitting in a footnote. It is already showing up in the revenue line. Hinge sits on the other side of that same coin. It built its entire brand around a promise to make itself unnecessary, and in that same quarter, its revenue grew 22%. Its payers grew 17%, and its global monthly active users grew 13%. Growth and an exit-oriented slogan are not, in practice, contradictory, and the reason is straightforward. As long as new single users keep arriving faster than successful couples leave, the total population searching, swiping, and occasionally paying keeps expanding even while individual love stories keep concluding. None of this proves that Hinge produces more real relationships than any other app. A growing user count and growing revenue are not the same claim as a growing number of successful matches, and a marketing slogan does not settle that question either. What the numbers do show is that an app can openly encourage its own users to leave and still post double-digit growth, provided the door lets enough new people in. Pew Research offers one more piece of context, this time from the demand side. In a national survey, about 10% of partnered American adults said they met their current partner through a dating site or app, and among partnered adults under 30, that figure rose to 20%. Online dating is not a service that fails to produce relationships. By its own user's account, it produces quite a lot of them. It simply has never escaped the structural puzzle of what happens to a subscription business once its product technically works. Put these pieces together, and the mechanism looks less like sabotage than a marketplace balanced on a knife edge. A dating app needs a constant flow of new single users to replace the ones who leave, enough visible success stories to keep its reputation and referral pipeline open, and enough free users converting into payers to keep revenue growing even as some of the base exits in a couple. Match Group says attracting and retaining users takes considerable, historically rising marketing spend, exactly why genuine word of mouth matters so much. A good story can bring in a replacement user without another paid campaign. None of this points toward keeping any one person perpetually single. It points toward keeping the total population large enough at every moment. The departures never outrun arrivals. The image that keeps surfacing is a revolving door. People step in alone. Some step out in pairs, and it does not care who passes through, only that it never stops turning. There are two versions of how this plays out, and the difference between them is entirely about behavior, not intention. In the stronger version, an app keeps investing in match quality, gets people to real dates faster, and lets success stories do genuine marketing work through reviews and word of mouth, pulling in enough new single users to replace every couple that walks out the door. Growth, in that version, does not happen despite the app helping people leave. It happens partly because of it, since few things are more persuasive to a new single user than a friend's genuine success story. In the weaker version, a company leans too hard on monetization, stacking paywalls in front of basic visibility and stretching the free experience until real dates become rare. Revenue per payer can rise for a while in that scenario. It can even look fine for a quarter or two on an earnings call. But the total number of payers and the size of the active base start eroding underneath it, because a search that never resolves stops attracting anyone new. Both versions run on the same core economics. Only one of them survives contact with users who have other apps to switch to. Go back to where this started. The app opened on a slow Tuesday night, the match that turned into a real date. The profile deleted a week later without a second thought about the business model underneath it. From where you sat, that deletion felt like an ending, full stop. A small, private success that had nothing to do with anyone else's spreadsheet. From where the company sits, that same moment is genuinely two things at once. It is one fewer paying account, one fewer subscription renewal, one less person swiping past ads and premium prompts. And it is also, if that story gets told at a dinner table or in a group chat, one small piece of proof that the whole search was worth attempting in the first place. The kind of proof that gets a friend to download the app next. Somewhere in a dashboard nobody outside the company will ever see. One active subscriber becomes one canceled subscription, and one canceled subscription becomes a single data point in a retention report. Read by people whose job is not to mourn you, only to make sure the next new profile arrives in time. The app never needed to keep you searching forever to make its economics work. It needed there to always be someone else, somewhere behind you, still looking. Your screen goes quiet because the product did exactly what it promised. Behind you, the door keeps turning, and by the time you have finished telling the story, someone new has already walked through it.